is we have two items on a special meeting, so I'll call the special meeting to order. The first presentation that we're going to have is from the Mayor's Harbor Advisory Committee, and they're going to give us an update. And I see we've got 3 or 4 of our members of that committee here, and I'm not sure who's going to take the lead in making the presentation. Is that going to be you, Joe? Okay, come forward. I would look forward to hearing from you.
There's some kind of reservation but empowering them to manage the policy for the situation that exists for that given day. I mean, we have days down here where we have concerts in the park. Those are going to be different than days when we don't have anything going on in the middle of the week. We have times when the transient slips are entirely empty, and somebody wants to stop by and spend the day in Edenton. Maybe we can let them use the slip. But if we have someone that's actively managing that, that's been empowered to make those decisions, we can do that and make it a much more welcoming place. So a head harbor master position is certainly very high on our list, right behind safety and security. So now we have a safe and secure place that's being managed actively. Next on our list is some infrastructure. Now, when you look at the social media and the feedback we get from folks that visit us from transient voters, typically they're going to come off the intercoastal, they're going to stop at Albemarle Plantation, and they're going to spend a couple days there. And if you've had a chance to see the facilities there, now I get it, that's a private space, and they are pretty amazing. And we're probably not going to reach that level, but that's the bar that we get measured against, because they go from there up to here. And then they visit these bathrooms that we have down here in our park. And there's great disappointment. It's very obvious in the feedback. The bathrooms and the shower facilities here are substandard for what the voters are expecting and what they're used to. In addition to that, when we add the harbor tours down here, the need for restroom facilities at our waterfront, when we do things in Colony Park, there's significant need for more and improved bathrooms, showering facilities, finding a way to have laundry facility for our transient voters, and other needs. So this is a big one, but a new waterfront public services building. The little building we have, this little structure over here, if you spend any time walking around that, first thing you realize how tiny it is. It's actually very small. This picture from this side looks big because there's this little annex that's built on there, but most of that building is only about 10 feet wide. I think it's 11 feet wide, so it's not a very big building. But it is in need for improvement. Everything we've looked at, this is not a historical structure in any sense, and while in Edenton we're all about preservation and restoration, this might be one case where we could remove and replace. And so the idea of this would be to remove and replace this, enlarge the footprint of it, provide additional restrooms, improve shower facilities, laundry facilities for the transient voters, an EMS equipment room for backboards, defibrillators, and that sort of thing, a police outpost, an office for our harbor master, and even a potential information counter. We're looking at something like this. If you look at the footprint of that current building, if we were to double the footprint and go 2 stories high, we could get something around the order of moving from 700 square feet up to 2,500 square feet, plus a kind of observation deck on there as well. Going from 2 restrooms to 6 restrooms, new showers, and then a laundry facility, that headmaster office, the police outpost, EMS storage, and then we would fit this with electronic locks. One of the problems we have on the current building also are these mechanical locks that we have codes in, and it's really a tedious operation to give out codes, and then you have to reprogram the codes and so forth. Locks have come a long way. We can do electronic locks. We can give transient voters their own code for using it, and it only works for a certain period of time and expires. We can do things with timers and clocks and keep the bathrooms open longer and that sort of thing. So we can come a long way with electronic locks to manage that. Now a lot of that gets into the policy. So that's our third big ask. And then finally we get into the physical day use. Physical day use, this involves both the voters and the adventurers coming to this space. We've identified a number of items here, and a lot of this gives credit to Matt Womble and the folks he works with, that he's been working with for some of these improvements. There are the seawall improvements around the Sunfish Park. There is an addition of a boat ramp for launching the small craft, and a floating dock for use for day use inside the breakwall. Let's advice and a request would be to add a kind of tap on that that is a little bit larger than just the 1.5 or 2 feet of the break wall itself. But by putting that, making that a sidewalk size cap, it allows for much safer use for fishing or for accessing boats, particularly the sunfish when they're servicing the sunfish in the school, the sailing school, and just even access for walking along that area is improving it with the cap, as seen in this photo here. Also, tying up in this area is very dangerous for boats. It's a metal and concrete bulkhead, and there's a great deal of wake activity from the channel going by, and boats basically beat into that wall. So if this walkway were to be fitted with any kind of bumpers or something like that to make docking there, that is actually an additional space for the day use docking. The second piece of this is a small boat launch ramp. Now, in our current little inlet over there on Sunfish Park, there is a little floating dock, which is nice because you get down to water level, but other than that, it's typically not considered to be very useful for getting the kayaks and canoes and so forth. And what's much more desired, as well as the sunfish, is a ramp positioned at the north end of that inlet, where there's a boat crane at this point. I don't think it's ever been used, or certainly hasn't in some time, but replacing that with a actual boat ramp and removing the floating dock out of that space, which gives more maneuverability in there and ease of launch for those craft. Additionally, the kayaks are kind of stacked up down there on a trailer. The ease of use for that requires finding the park attendant, if you can find them, filling out paperwork and doing the necessary stuff there, collecting the stuff, walking across the park, dragging your boat, getting it into the water. Hertford has implemented a program we'd like to follow along with a much more modern day access. It's a locker system. The kayaks and the paddles and the life vests are all stored in a locker system. You use a phone app. You take care of all the necessary paperwork, payment information. The locker unlocks. You take it out. You have your paddle. You come back. You place it in. You stop. The timer stops. You can provide access to these at the hours that you would like, and billing all takes place online. It really cleans up the process and makes it much more accessible for people who don't have to go locate someone to make use of the kayaks. And then this floating dock system, a way to get to have our day boats have a place to park that's at the right level. Even if you do get tourism department, as well as locally here to promote the Albemarle Loop is key. That brings in considerable revenue to the Albemarle plantation. I think the numbers they gave were something around $50,000 in additional revenue for the commercial activities that take place at the plantation due to those boats on an annualized basis. So that would be really good economic boost for our retailers here. Also, reviewing our waterfront policy. I'm sure a lot of the policy that we have in place today was written, made a lot of sense at the time it was written. I don't know how long it's been since it's been reviewed, but we now have these tiers, and we have a use pattern that we can consider in evaluating those policies, as well as policies of the facilities usage, and bathroom and hours, and so forth. And so likely need to go back through that policy and review that and get it up to date, involving also including things for kayak rental and so forth. And then lastly, just so you know it's on our radar, but we haven't really done anything, is some feedback of some non-water usage items with the Colonial Park. The sand volleyball court, placement of that, as well as potentially a splash pad. Particularly interested in the splash pad. It's a great way to get folks down in the waterfront, folks that maybe don't have money to have a kayak or anything. All you need is a pair of shorts and a t-shirt, and you can come down and enjoy our waterfront. So having a splash pad really would invite maybe some of the folks that don't ordinarily come down to make use of our waterfront. So we're looking forward to that. So with that, a lot of items on that list. I think that we're fairly well aligned with what I saw. Elizabeth City is looking at doing similar kind of things. So I don't think we're too far out of whack, but we would love to hear your feedback. We have the whole team here, or almost the whole team. So at that point, I'd like to thank you for your attention and open up for questions and comments.
You two guys, three guys have any questions?
I think it's an amazing job they did with that presentation, number one.
Yeah. Sir?
Go ahead.
Councilman Costin is watching over Zoom, and he has forwarded me two of his questions. The first one is, will the fund source for these projects be the $2 million appropriated from the state budget? And if not, what is the anticipated funding source?
You want me to take this, guys?
Well, that was part of our marching orders, was the decision, purse strings on that $2 million, when it's ever realized, if it's ever realized, should be in your chairs, not ours. And for this to be a viable presentation based on our marching orders, we very focusedly decided not to consider money as part of what we should be presenting to you. The money is your issue, not ours, and particularly Corey, all over that. So thank you, Joe.
So,
And I'll add to that, the one thing we did do is try to keep Harbor Town's needs in mind and look for the areas we thought there would be good overlap, again, with what their presentation to the Elizabeth City and the infrastructure they're looking for there. We did use that somewhat as a barometer to try to look for the low-hanging fruit where we would be asking for the same kind of things, that these things would represent the same kind of things that Harbor Towns would be likely looking for.
And so I guess to kind of expand a little further on that, so when we originally met with the group to give them some guidance on this, in addition to what they had done on their own, one of the things that we did ask them to do was is to consider what we would need, and we are significantly more, I guess, advanced with our waterfront than some of the other locations, is what should we do to increase the foot traffic from the ferries, the dinner boat, transient boaters, as well as some of the local boaters. And so that was really the goal here. We will take that back and align. Historically, the town has provided funds for some of our waterfront improvements, whether that be through FEMA grants from hurricane relief, or whether that's directly allocated through our landscaping budget for our parks and playground. We've always set aside some amount, but we've never really had the opportunity to match or go after larger funding sources that's more commonly there. And so we did ask the group to consider what really would make our waterfront special, and I think you guys did a good job of that. And we've got our work cut out for us to argue for the dollar amounts. But it all depends on cost and pricing. On you know, some of these are cheaper items to implement. Some of these are policy items that we can quickly address. And some of them are going to be pretty costly.
So with the money that we do have for the parks, something like the volleyball court and the splash pad, can that be included in any of that or not?
I would say it could to some extent. I would try to keep that to a minimum, knowing that we were focusing on some of the outlying neighborhood parks, but I do think there'll likely be some small
Excess,
funds left over.
And Councilman Colston's next question was about the park, which I think you just answered part of that in terms of equipment and potential upgrades, although that park's in great shape. His next question was about what we would do with the parking lot in order to upgrade that to better benefit some of these ideas. And I guess that, again, would be up to us.
Yeah, and that would be a bigger discussion as far as our downtown parking as a whole. When we look at our parking along Eden Street, when we look at our parking along Court Street, when we look at how our east to west streets are designed, I think an overall parking plan and study to get the best and most use of the space we have now would really be what we would need to consider first.
All right. And then one more for me this time is who do we even begin to talk to about wake zones? And this is an educational question. I mean, is that through wildlife or Marine Patrol or?
So luckily, Dwayne does have a background with Marine Patrol, so that's one venue. Captain Mark and I spoke about this today with the North Carolina Wildlife Commission. That would be one way of approaching that. We do have a good relationship with the folks from the Elizabeth City CAMA office that may help with some technical questions that we may have about shielding and what it does and what it could help protect. So I think it's kind of a group talk with the locals, with the state agencies, with your regional water specialists, you know, like the folks out of Elizabeth City. And I think there'll probably be 3 or 4 people to the table that will help us say, yes, this is the right thing, and we can check the list. But wildlife should be our main point of contact to begin with.
They've also offered their expertise. The town is the entity that has to request no wake zones.
Okay.
And the justification is always comes back to boater safety.
Yeah.
Our kayakers, our sailboats, our fishermen out there with the tournaments. We have to have a very good relationship with one of the approval authorities who said he would preview our request to ensure that, not grease the skids, but make sure we're asking for the right thing.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So we got a good feel for that.
And knowing that, and knowing that the funding piece of this from a policy standpoint as well as an asset that may be added down here, that's why the funding piece wasn't a limiting factor on what this report should bring back and show us. And we kind of looked at it holistically: policy, operations, safety, and then a new asset. So we wanted to try to get everything we could, and that is a big piece of it.
Other than the dock master that was over there at Albemarle, was there additional help? I know.
That was the first thing we did, was because we knew the harbor master had been in position in the past year, and it hasn't been allowed to morph into park attendants. And we're not saying that the harbor master should be exclusively waterfront and not Colonial Park. That would still fall under that preview. J.D. Darnell is, by title, hired as a harbor master. Now, the point that Phil mentioned, there's quite a difference between the operations that we would be employing as opposed to theirs. They're more of a resort entity.
Right.
But saw the checklist that JD employs to ensure that when he's not on site, things are getting done correctly. There's a checklist, and the big thing that's not happening here, he gets what he inspects, not what he expects. And that's what's not happening here is, we have the varying levels of commitment to ensuring that the park and the waterfront is being properly policed or for lack of a better word. And so that's what JD's doing. And so he provided all that to us. Now they're gonna have to be, and probably Herman Bond here is probably the perfect expert to take those, take ours, and morph the two together so that we have something that fits us, not our Morale resort.
Right.
But they've given us a real good thumbnail sketch of where this should be going. And any other questions on that?
Very good.
Well, Joe, I would like to thank you and your team for obviously what's been a lot of hard work over the last couple months that you guys have put into this. This is the Mayor's Harbor Advisory Committee, and so as mayor, what I'd like to do is move this to our administrative committee that is chaired by Craig Miller. Unfortunately, he's not here tonight. But ask Craig and his committee to take a look at your recommendations and work closely with your group to determine a number of things. One would be the feasibility of these recommendations, and also we're going to request that the administrative committee give us kind of things that we think we can do within 90 days, things we can do within 180 days, things we can do within 1 year, and things we can do within 3 years, and kind of come back to us with a plan of what that group feels, along with your input and your group's input, what can be done within those time parameters, and then we'll figure out what we can afford. But obviously a lot of work has gone into this. I'd like to thank all of you gentlemen, including Jim, for your dedication and really getting a lot done in a short period of time. It's most appreciated. So what I would do is just request Corey, if you would get together with Craig and give him and his committee direction, and then they would reach out to you guys and work together. So as far as what we need from you, just continued input, and we'll engage with you through our administrative committee.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on our special meeting agenda is a presentation regarding ACE inspections. Dwayne Wilton, our assistant town manager, prepared this presentation. Unfortunately, Dwayne, like many of us, is under the weather, and I think Corey's going to take over for that.
Different view, but if you remember back in the fiscal year 23/24, the town council worked to look at a way to more efficiently increase the presence of our code enforcement division that Dwayne heads up, as well as have some additional staffing that we were going to work with for our code enforcement officers because of some of the shared responsibilities and relationships we have with a rather small department. And if you remember, we approved funding for 2 days a week for an entire year with a company by the name of ACE Inspections that Dwayne has worked very hard over the last 7 months with. And tonight we wanted to try to give you an update on some of the progress that this group with Dwayne's leadership has made. Particularly for us, if you remember, we've had quite a long list of homes that are vacant and have been unoccupied for some great amount of time. Dwayne and the guys from ACE have been able to work together and really make a substantial improvement in some of the lot conditions as well as the home conditions since July 1 of this past year. So what we'll do is try to give the council just an update on a handful of locations that we've worked on And if you got any questions at the end, I'll try my best to answer those. Hopefully Dwayne will be able to get back in here and maybe provide us with an annual update when we go back through this upcoming year's budget process, when you decide if you'd like to continue to work with the guys from ACE. So one of the first locations, if you remember, we've tried to focus on homes that we've really struggled with over the past, that have been in quite a state of disrepair for many years. Here's one of the photos of one of the homes we've been able to work successfully with the property owner to try to get this area cleaned up. They were very receptive, and if you drive by there today, you'll notice that we were able to help navigate and find some options to work together with property owners to get that area cleaned up. This area is substantially different look now. The neighbors are very excited about the improvements that they've seen, as well as some of the reductions in some of the varmints that may come with an older house. Here's one that is just here behind the
Corey, can I
courthouse.
interrupt real quick?
Yes.
Are there any plans for that lot? It looks like they demolished the house and now it's a vacant lot.
We're continuing to work with the property owner to explore options, whether it's to sell, whether it's to build a new home on that property. We try to provide every option we can just to get the areas kind of at least a clean slate. And so at this point, are they interested in selling or building? I do not know. That'd be one of those questions that Dwayne could answer a little better. When we look here, this is one of the houses that's just behind the courthouse at 109 East Church Street. If you look at the before and you look at the after, this is some of the efforts that we've been able to make to encourage property owners to go ahead and start some of these investments, start making some of the improvements that you see. And you can tell there's quite a bit of difference in that versus what we have now. Currently, this house is for sale. I think it has sold with since we put this presentation together. But this is just another example of if renovation and resale is an option, we try to work with those homeowners to find a reasonable path to get there. Some of these homes, that's not the case. Some of these homes will continue in a year's time to be working with the property owners depending on the legal status and any type of tax or lien or any properties problems that we run upon on certain properties. Some are a little easier, some are not. If you look here, this is on at 115 West Queen, just beside the Edenton Baptist Church parking lot. This is the before photos, and if you look now, Wayne's been working very steadily with the property owner to try to get some renovations done, to try to get some of the repairs done. The house has been painted. It's really refreshing to see some of the preservation efforts come from our planning and inspections department. That's a big step in the right direction. It's not always putting up a sign. It's not always some type of fine. We really are trying to be a resource with these property owners to figure out what's the best scenario for them. Here's a house at 130 West Freemason. This is the before. This is some of the work that's being done now. This home is being fully renovated. Some improvements have been made. The area has been cleaned up. This home is now listed for sale. This is one of those homes that's been vacant for many, many years that, in a year's time we'll all look and can't believe the progress that has happened. Here's another great example. We work really closely with the property owners, some local developers, as well as some of our local realtors to really try to figure out a way to really make some improvements. These houses were condemned. I mean, they were to the point that they were not livable. And if you ride by today and take a look at these, both of these are occupied now.
And Corey, excuse me again, when a house is declared condemned, no one can legally live there.
No power, no water, no utilities.
But there's still an owner of that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we were able to work with the property owner to get these two homes to navigate through to a sale with the current property owner to the new property owner. The new property owner, they have made quite a bit of investment, renovated this property, and now both the front house and the rear house are both occupied. If you drive by there, you look at Street View from a year ago and you look at today, and it's quite a substantial change.
Yeah.
Another property that we've been working on is right off of East Freemason, right near where the Hicks Field is. This home has been vacant for many, many years. We really tried to work with the property owner to try to find a path to renovate this property. Ultimately, the property was really too far gone. We're continuing to work with that property owner now. He's demolishing that house and getting it cleaned up. Once again, we're not quite sure what the vacant lot will create. Hopefully, a new home in the near future. But you know, in June of 2020, June 30th of 2023 versus now, versus where we were before, this is quite the movement. Here's a house that has been vacant on Paxton Lane for quite some time. This house actually sold in January of this year. House has been vacant for many, many years. Very excited to see what the progress is for this home. This is one that we were talking about a little earlier. 102 Virginia Road. This was the home that was part of the commercial development for the CVS Center. If you rode by there this weekend, that house has been purchased. New homeowners have been out there really working to do some cleanup. I wish we had an after picture because I rode by there Saturday. It was quite impressive what yard work had been done just in exposing the house. It's a beautiful one. Also, two homes, they're kind of a package deal that sold late last year, either November or December of last year, maybe January of this year, at the end of East Gale Street. The two homes have been vacant for many, many years. Dwayne and the folks from ACE were able to work with these property owners, try to find a venue that was really best, because each location is really unique to the situation that the owners are in. Another home here that's been vacant for many, many years on West Freemason. Another house here that's West Peterson. It's been vacant for many, many years. That's currently listed for sale. Same thing, another home here that's been vacant for many, many years on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue, currently listed for sale. So there are multiple categories that these homes fall into. For us to have such a kind of thorough list of properties, I think that's 15 to 20 properties in the period of 7 or 8 months. That's really impressive. Dwayne and the guys from ACE have been working really, really hard to try to find options for these property owners. And we want folks to understand that this really is a partnership. We're not really going after these folks and giving them unrealistic expectations. There's a lot of one-on-ones. There's a lot of site visits. There's a lot of negotiations back and forth on what people can afford, what they can't, what options they have. And we really try to be a good partner to get the best use of that space.
How many more are on our list right now to go talk?
We have quite a long list. I want to say when we started with ACE, we provided them with a list of around 100 properties that we've been kind of working our way through. Various addresses, and you do that in small batches, because some you'll quickly get some accomplishments made on. Some will take a little bit longer, and then some will get into a really long cycle. And so you just rule of numbers, keep marching forward. One's off the list, add a new one, and that's how we've been approaching this.
Does ACE reach out to these people, or does the town reach out to them? How do y'all contact the homeowners?
So we work with ACE to develop all the letters, and that's been part of the problem historically, is the amount of mail and certified mail accounting that has to happen in this process. So we help them identify the locations. They help us with the inspections and making sure that we're keeping the timelines for anything they have mailed out. But it's a very engaged process. Before a letter is released, Dwayne and I, give it a thumbs up to go ahead and at least start the conversation.
Any more questions or comments? Well, Corey, I appreciate you and Dwayne and your hard work on this, and I also appreciate both of you bringing ACE to us last year to consider them being a contractor. for this type of work, and we look forward to receiving periodic reports from you and Dwayne on that. At this time, I'd close out the special meeting and move to our committee meetings. The only committee meetings that we have tonight is the Administrative Committee chaired by Councilman Miller. Councilman Miller had to be out of town and was not able to make it back in time for the meeting, so I think Corey, you and Tyler are going to handle these matters. Is that correct?
Yep, and I thank you, Mayor High. The only items to consider tonight, there's 2 items for the Administrative Committee. The first, our Public Information Officer, Tyler Newman, is here with us tonight. And we wanted to have a chance to go over some of the improvements for the waterfront. And one of the things that Tyler has been working on in parallel to the Mayor's Harbor Advisory Committee is really trying to find what options we need for that public access for the webcam. In your packet, there were, we initially started this when we had conversations with one of our local news broadcast representatives, and we're trying to vet the idea of getting a webcam for our harbor. That would be provided during news broadcasts, would be a part of weather updates, things of that nature. And that really kind of started us down the path. And so what we wanted to do is really try to vet all the options that were available. Tyler's here with us tonight if you want to come up and talk about that. Tyler knows a lot more about the technical details of what we explored. But this is one of those things when you talk about those 90-day projects, those 180-day projects, is something that we can quickly accomplish. Installing a webcam with public access, that's easy, low-hanging fruit. That's a relatively low cost in the grand scheme of who's paying for it, an asset that we can quickly add. So
and
Tyler?
to piggyback off of the great presentation that Joe gave about harbor improvements, one of the things that I've been working with Court Palmer on, who's here tonight, the county IT director, is a webcam at the waterfront that is accessible to our residents 24/7, any day of the year on our website. This will serve multiple purposes. One, it will drive resident engagement to our website. It will boost traffic. The secondly is it could help our friends at tourism. People love to watch the sunset on the waterfront. They can log in at any time and view that. Thirdly would be weather and flooding. We can keep an eye on our storms, whether that's wind velocities, how the flood waters come in, whether things are flooding at the waterfront. Another thing would also be for vessel and boat security, which was mentioned by our group. They can keep an eye on their boats that are docked, that are tied up. They can see how they're doing in storms, during large events. It could be used for crowd control. The public accessible, the viewpoints, it would be a 4-way dimensional camera is what we're looking at right now through the recommended one, which is Verkada. Verkada should be the middle vendor, which is seen in your packet. They're a few dollars more than Hanwha, but I feel that the technology that Verkada offers is superior. Their frame rates are higher. They stream directly to the website without an intermediary, whereas Hanwha needs a third party to stream directly to the website, and we would be paying an extra amount to that third party to handle that for us. Verkada would just take care of that seamlessly, send it straight to the website. Court has assured me that we have power and broadband already at the waterfront. We can put it up on our pole down here at the very end by the breakwater. I believe above the existing police camera. However, we're going to work that out with Hunter's crews. We will be doing it through a security firm known as John's Brothers. Is that right, Court? John's Brothers. They're local. They have techs here, always available. Verkada has a 10-year warranty on their equipment. I think that the company's very impressive. We demoed with the police chief in Duck on the Outer Banks. Duck uses webcams on their website to monitor traffic on NC-12 on their boardwalk. I was very impressed by the software that he showed us. He gave glowing recommendations. You can also see other towns and cities listed in the packet that had to use this technology. But that was kind of what got the ball rolling, was a demo that we did with that police chief. And so if we can bring this to full council next month and it's approved, then I think by the end of March, early April, we can have something installed down there for people to start looking at, 24/7, anytime.
And Corey and Tyler, the proposal by WITN out of Greenville was cost prohibitive, and then when you just went down the checklist, we felt like the recommended vendor offered more, despite the fact that it was cheaper.
That's right.
But in any event, that it was just not affordable to do it through WITN. And that leads me to a question. We would own this system Is
That's
that correct?
We would
It would
pay
be our
upfront.
system?
Mhm. Yes.
Would we have the ability to push that out to any news stations, you know, to get some
Yes, if I
publicity or
can- if I can
coverage
take this,
for Edenton through that?
I spoke with a meteorologist from Wavy TV10 who had reached out about the Isabel film recently. And piggybacking on that, he said, well, I would love to see a webcam on your waterfront that we could show on our newscast, we could show on our weather. You know, they have 2 million people up there in Virginia that watch that channel. And I said, well, sure, well, what do you need? Do you guys have costs or anything? And they said, well, we aren't sure what we do with our company, but if you have your own camera and you feed us the certain link to the feed, we'll show it at no cost. We'll show it anytime. Williamsburg, York County, or some of the folks up in Virginia that do that with them already. And if we could get more exposure for Edenton up in the Norfolk market, people can, you know, see our nice, you know, lighthouse views. They can see the bay, you know, Water Street, the Barker House. We'll have 4 different viewpoints, but I'm sure they would want to see the lighthouse the most at sunset. But that's much more cost effective than paying $45,000 over 5 years.
Which is what WIT
Yes,
would have.
and we would just be leasing it at that point.
It's great to see the views and be able to go online, but the security part, especially with what we want to do, is big. I mean, or a situation that needs to be looked at because something bad happened.
And so when we look at this, when we try to normalize the different vendors and the different options, and Tyler and I spoke about this a lot, and we also had a conversation with Court about this. Us having full access and control of the asset as well as its exposure to the rest of the world is very, very important. Not having a third-party vendor like the other camera system has that gets us out to the world is just one more piece in the puzzle that you really don't need. So for us, when we talk about the potential for harbor towns, when we talk about the potential for the town's website, when we talk about the potential to simply, you know, send these to multiple television stations, you know, not only in the Tidewater area, but, you know, throughout the state.
Right.
Yeah, we own that. We own that link. We own that asset. It's ours. You know, whatever type of you know, agreements that we can get with them to use it, it's our decision. I mean, so that really puts us in control. And if you look, even though the Hanwha is just a slight bit cheaper over 5 years, the less than $40 difference in price over 5 years, only having to deal with one person,
Yeah.
and it gives us complete control. The numbers are negligible.
Not to mention the technology. The Verkada
Yes.
camera, the frame rate's higher. It's at least 10 frames per second higher, so you're going to have a much smoother video. The quality's higher. The infrared range is longer. We've been impressed by Verkada. Cord has given me good reviews of the company. He's been impressed by them. I've been impressed by them, so that would be the recommendation that I would bring forward.
And we tried to provide as many municipalities within our area. If you look at the bottom of the comparison, they're a local player, and so for us that's important. And so it's very easy to go look at Dare County's or Ducks or Elizabeth City's or Aiden's camera system, see just how nice that product is. And that's theirs, no one else's. So.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Tyler. Appreciate your work on this. What we'll do is we'll recommend that this go to full council for vote at our regular March meeting for Verkada.
Yeah.
The next matter before us on the administrative committee, Corey, is the mayor's task force appointments.
And thank you, Mayor Tyler is here with us again. He is the town employee liaison for this board. Tyler's been working with the board for the past 90 days and has 2 applicants that are with us tonight from the greater area, greater Edenton, Chowan area. We had 2 vacancies that formed this past year when a husband and wife actually moved away, and luckily we were able to replace them with another husband and wife couple. So that's wonderful. Tyler, anything you want to add with our applicants?
They are both here, Tom Brennan and Mary Ellen Hill. They were fortunate enough to come out tonight. We thank them. I think they're both stellar candidates, lifelong environmentalists. You may recognize Tom for some of the work he's done with Councilman Dixon at Hayes. He's helped to document and photograph a lot of the things that Councilman posts online as part of the EBM Foundation to sort of document their restoration over there. So he's a wonderful photographer. I think they're great assets to the community, and I couldn't think of better candidates.
So, and historically, we would have the applicants come up and you know say anything that you feel is pertinent about your background, and if council has any questions, that would be an appropriate time to ask. If not, yeah, that's fine.
This is my wife, Mary Ellen, and I'm Tom. We have different last names, but we all know. Mary Ellen's been involved with the Sierra Club for, 30+ years. And we have both been actively involved with the environmental activities here in town. And, look forward to working with Trish and Tyler and Susan and, Steve and company really well. And I think it's an important committee, and I think we really love working with the group and appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for your willingness to step forward and volunteer. As you probably know, over the last couple of years, litter and the environment have become a top priority for this council, and we hope that you guys remain committed. It sounds like it's a lifelong commitment, so we look forward to seeing continued commitment from you and the task force. But we appreciate it anytime our citizens step forward and volunteer to help out our town. And what we'd like to do with this, Corey, is push this to our March meeting and just approve those appointments at our regular meeting in March. And there does not appear to be any more business before the body, so I would declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you for being here.